affected week of pregnancy? Tomorrow is a great election. What should I vote for?
Welcome to YD. Why do Germans do things the way they do?
There were already some videos about people trying out the Wahl-O-Mat. We will have a look on this today also, but there are also other options, and we will also look at the Wahl-Kompass. The Wahl-O-Mat was started in 2002 by the Bundeszentrale für Politische Bildung. So it's a federal agency for political education. How do they do this? The Wahl-O-Mat. First, every citizen up to the age of 26 could apply to be part of the team. Then 24 young people, first voters or second voters, and some experts sit together. They think about 80 questions which are most important for the political situation for this next election. Then they send these questions where the parties can say yes, neutral, or no to the parties, and they should answer them. And they even say why they did this. But nobody cares what they say. It's just the fact they say yes or neutral or no and have a certain reason for this. Then there's a second workshop where again all these people sit together and they look through the answers and they take those answers which really differ. So just in case you would say, we want to move the capital to Stuttgart. And no party says, oh yeah, we are for this. And everybody says, no, we are against it. So why should you put such a question in the Wahl-O-Mat when every party says no? So only those questions who make a difference are in the Wahl-O-Mat. So not all 80, but 38. And then we can start with this. And that is what we are doing now. Just a disclaimer, I don't use it as really I would answer all questions. This is about to show you what are pros and cons for a certain question. And I really only do some things on the most obvious things. Otherwise, I stay neutral. We will have 38 questions. We always could agree, stay neutral, not agree, or we could even skip this thesis if we don't want to answer them, because some parties also said we are neutral on a certain thing. So skip would be don't count my answer here. First question. Germany should continue to support Ukraine militarily. On the one hand, it's the price you have to pay. You would mess in a kind with Russia. On the other hand, you could think, well, you have to support Ukraine because it was a violation against an independent country. It prolongs the war, but maybe Ukraine stays free and will not be occupied. So, yes, no, you could think about this. So I stay neutral. The expansion of renewable energies should continue to be financially supported by the state. There is a climate change, so we have to get away from fossil fuels, and renewable energy is a good way to do this. The renewable energy is, as far as I know, the cheapest way to get energy because you don't have to have any fuels for it, and you don't have to care so much about the danger. For example, no nuclear power plant is insured because no insurance would uh, pay the risk of a disaster. But the question here is, should it be financially supported by the state? And you could argue, well, if it's the cheapest energy, why should you support it by the state? On the other hand, yes, of course, so it will go faster. So, I stay neutral.
The citizens' allowance is to be withdrawn from those who repeatedly reject job offers. First of all, it was a question, how many people are there who really refuse all job offers? And it's very small number. It's about 17 or 18,000 in whole of Germany. So very few. At the same time, the citizens' allowance, like an unemployment benefit, um, is very near to the existential minimum. So really, the whole question is a bit weird because it doesn't matter so much, and the only thing you could withdraw is help on getting a new job and other things. Yeah, I stay neutral. A general speed limit should apply on all motorways. You know, on large parts of the German Autobahn, we have no speed limit. You can drive as fast as you can securely handle your car, while the German automobile companies limit their cars to 250 at a maximum. So, should there be a general speed limit on all motorways? There is only one reason that there should be no speed limit. But this reason, I've never heard this reason, and I won't tell this reason. And all the other reasons, like a better average speed on Autobahn, uh, less pollution, less accidents, and so on, they are all in advance for a speed limit, and it wouldn't cost money because you just have to change the law and say the maximum is 140, 130, 120, whatever. You don't need new signs at the maximum at the border. So, here I agree. Asylum seekers who have entered the country via another EU country will be turned away at the German border. I think according to Dublin Agreement, this would be correct because the Dublin Agreement says wherever an asylum seeker steps on the ground the first time in the EU, he has to ask for asylum. And as many people come through the Mediterranean Sea, this is very much the case in Spain, Italy, and Greece. So they have to handle a lot of asylum seekers, and they have really problems with this. So on the other hand, it would be fair from the other EU countries to say, okay, they want to get somewhere into the EU, so everybody gets a fair share and everybody handles it. Then it would be not the issue. But some countries deny this, say, no, it's Dublin. And maybe some even say, oh, they don't want to come to us. They want to come to Germany or France or wherever. So they send them through. Um, so yes, principle, it would be correct to turn them away. On the other hand, yeah, I think it's a real problem to send them away if you, at which point are you aware of this? I stay neutral. For new rentals, rental prices should continue to be capped by law. This is an interesting point, and there are many things in these rental prices where you can charge higher things. You can renovate the whole thing, and then it could be a higher price. And while think about half of the apartments are from private individuals, so like you got the big house from your parents, and you say, well, I have a small family, I just need the ground floor, and the upper floor could be given to a tenant. So apart from that, there are the bigger companies who really build new apartment houses. And to be fair, those companies want to make money. And if they don't get enough money through building new houses, they probably say, okay, so we do something else, invest into shares or something. It's a two-edged sword. It would be better for the tenant, yes, but maybe there will be not enough flats for these tenants. So again, I stay neutral. The federal policy should be allowed to use software for automated facial recognition at railway stations. Some countries do this. Some countries even have a full cover with CCTV and something like this. And this is rarely the case in Germany. And also this software, I think it's used in China. I'm not sure. I think Facebook even uses some of this. Um, this is a question of data protection. And Germans love the privacy of data. On the other hand, it would support the federal police at the railway stations. And you could claim, well, you're a democratic country, everything is fine, you have an independent justice and so on. What is the case? Then you think, well, Weimar Republic was a democratic also, but in 1933 everything changed. And even in some parts of Europe or other parts of the world, suddenly this independence justice changed. So not so easy, and I stay neutral. Energy-intensive companies should receive financial compensation from the state for their electricity costs. This is, for example, steel manufacturers who make new steel and they use a lot of energy. And for this, in the past, they used coal because they were, for example, in the Saarland or in North Rhine-Westphalia, and there were the coal mines. But we skipped this fossil coal use and they usually changed to electricity. And this is really intensive. Um, and now you could say if we don't support them, we will lose a lot of jobs and the steel will be produced somewhere else where, for example, the countries or companies don't care if they use fossil fuels or not. On the other hand, you would say, why should we all pay for a single company? You see, it's not so easy. I stay neutral. All employees should be able to retire without deductions after 40 years of contribution. In the past, the retirement age rules. So when I will retire, I think I have to be 67. For my kind of job, this should be not a problem. For other kinds of job, whatever, a roofer, for example, people like that could be a problem. And if you think you get out of secondary school at the age of 16, you make 3 years of apprenticeship. Maybe even in these years you pay contributions and 40 years of work. So it's about 56 to 59, let's say 60, and then you should go into retirement. This is 7 years earlier than now. That will cost a lot of money because our retirement system is based on all employees pay in, and at the same time, the pensioners get money out of the system. No, maybe like 45 years or so. But it's really a tough question, even to say just these years. So I stay neutral. The introductory sentence of the basic law should continue to contain the phrase responsibility before God. Hmm. So, yes, there's a division between church and state. This is an old word that was used in the past a lot. Really, I don't care if it's in or not. Germany should continue to promote the recruitment of skilled workers from abroad. Probably some of you who watch this channel are skilled workers from abroad who came or want to come to Germany. And yes, we need a lot of people. That's why I made this channel, just to answer questions. And I think, yes, we just have to promote this recruitment. We to advertise it. Yes. Germany should again use nuclear energy to generate electricity. As I said before, nuclear energy is the most expensive way to produce energy. It is quite good in climate-related issues. Um, at the same time, to build a new power plant, it would take at least 10, if not 20 years, as you see in some other countries. It will be milliards or billions of euros. And the last three ones we shut down were even prolonged. So the last coalition prolonged the runtime, what the uh, coalition of FDP and CDU before said, no, we have to close them at a certain time. And they closed all the others until the last three. And these last three were prolonged in use. And now they were in part even demolished, built back. So they have no tests, they were not certified, and they are out of business for some years now. It would even take years to bring them back. And even the uh, companies who run them don't want any uh, nuclear power plants anymore. So I don't know how Germany should do this if even the companies who produce energy say, no, we don't need them. So, no. The top tax rate on income is to be increased. I think it's 46%, and you really have to get a lot of income. So those people are really wealthy, and probably they wouldn't feel it so much if it would be increased. On the other hand, they pay already much. And if they pay even more, they have such a good income that they sometimes even could say, well, so I move abroad, Luxembourg, Monaco, Switzerland, whatever, would be an option, maybe. I stay neutral. The federal government should be given more powers in school policy. Interesting point. Um, Maybe it would be easier for all if there would be the same curriculum all over Germany and the same value for degrees, because at the moment it differs. Even the names for school types differ from federal state to federal state. I made a whole video about this, linked here. Yes, I think it should be. But on the other hand, this is a balancing of power between the federal states and the federal government. And if you take some of the powers of the federal states from the federal government, what would you give back to them? So, ah, I stay neutral. Germany should continue to be allowed to export military equipment to Israel. There are different aspects. So first of all, because the Germans under Nazi era killed millions of Jews, that was a thing that Israel was established as a state because they fled somewhere to stay together. And therefore, the whole part that Israel is there as it is now is partially the fault of Nazi Germany. So there's a historical fault for this. Same time, you could say, well, what they do with the people in Gaza is not correct, and if you help them, it might be that you are fault, that's your fault also. So it's a really tough question. I stay neutral. All citizens should be required to be insured in statutory health insurance funds. Um, Everybody who comes to Germany, wants to live or work here, has to have a health insurance. And if you are below a certain income, you will be statutory health insured. I think it's very beneficial because you and your relatives are then insured, even in case you are unemployed or anything. But if you are have a very good income, then you can opt out of this and make a private insurance. For young single persons, it's cheaper. So many say, okay, I do this. If you get older, then it will become more and more expensive. And of course, you have to have one insurance for every part of your family. If those people who are younger would pay into the system, it would be beneficial for the system. On the other hand, the doctors could charge up to 3 times more for a private insured person than for a statutory health insured person. And through this amount of money, they often co-finance their offices, their equipment, and so on. So it's not just black and white, and well, I stay neutral. The statutory quota for women on executive boards and supervisory boards of listed companies is to be abolished. I don't know exactly when it was made, this statutory quota, but before that, there was nearly no women in such a board. It was not that the women were not qualified, it was just a men's group. Yeah, they stuck together and said, why do women want? No, we don't want to have women here. We make our men's jokes and we are a cool group. And through this quota, they had to do this. And this quota was not fine for all. Some women even said, no, I don't want to get in that group because of a quota. I want to get in that group or on that job because I'm very good. Maybe if we would abolish it, it would be even now that there would be women in. I don't know if as much or less or more than now. But maybe even some companies would say, no, we get back to just a man's job. I stay neutral. Organic farming should be promoted more than conventional farming. Organic farming would be more beneficial for the environment. Maybe more organic farming is also better for the personal health. On the other hand, conventional farming is cheaper and may have small output. It's not easy. So better for the health, but there are even poorer people who can't afford it. I stay neutral. The federal government should increase its support for projects against right-wing extremism. So yes, right-wing extremism is very bad. We just had the fifth year looking back to what was done in Hanau. Right-wing extremists killed 9 people, I think. But at the same time, it's exactly same thing what is done by Islamists. Yes, if you sometimes have this, it was this incidents in the past where there was a stabbing and there was an attack with a car. So this was from the Islamistic point. And sometimes there is also that you have left-wing extremism. I think one is quite popular where a person is charged in Hungary for attacking right-wing people. So yes, they should increase its support on projects against right-wing. At the same time, I have to say, we have to have projects against this religious extremism as well. And we also have to look on left-wing extremism. Companies should continue to be required to monitor compliance with human rights and environmental protection among all suppliers. Think about it. You buy something and you know no child has to work on this, the environmental protection was fine, and there was no slavery. So I buy this thing and it's perfect. So it would be like your local farmer makes organic farming and gives you an apple. And this apple is fine, without pesticides, great. But now this apple in the winter is not from Germany, but from New Zealand, for example. You would say, okay, New Zealand, probably no child labor and no slavery. and it said organic, so okay, I agree with it. But what is with an electrical item where you have parts from all over the world? And those manufacturers have to take care that in none of these countries, none of these companies is any violation of these things. This is really a big effort. What is probably only possible for really big companies. First, when it's effort, it's more expensive and it will increase the cost. Second, if it's only possible for really big companies, smaller companies could not afford and have to go out of business. So I see the point that a wealthy country should protect even poorer countries, but at the same time, this is so much effort. I don't know if all companies could do this, so I stay neutral. The BAföG training grant will continue to be paid depending on the parent's income. I have also a video on BAföG. So this is a training grant. You don't have to pay so fast. You don't have so high interest rates, and sometimes you don't have to pay the full amount back. Should it depend on parents' income? Basically, yes. So if your parents could afford it, and it's not the case like in the US where you have to pay 20, $30,000 a year or in a semester just to study. This is all about you study and you have living costs. What is about now? I don't know, 12,000 euro for a whole year. So for living and not to pay to studying. Um, so yes, if your parents could do this, it should be beneficial, but at the same time, you may have wealthy parents who have lots of kids, or um, you have no good connection to your parents, and they just say, sorry, we don't do this. I stay neutral. The debt break in the basic law should be retained. There's a certain debt break, Schuldenbremse, in the basic law. The government can't invest more than they get and a bit more. And for certain circumstances, this could be leveled and made easier to get new debts. And in the last time, there was a financial minister who said, no, no, strict to this one, even if it would be up for investment in the future, therefore would be beneficial. So in a kind, I think it should retain, but it should be more flexible. I can't say it here, so I stay neutral. Asylum seekers in Germany should receive a work permit immediately after submitting their application. We pay quite a lot for the asylum seekers because in the first month they have no possibility otherwise to do this. There was even a claim that some of these asylum seekers sent money back to their home countries to support their families there. Therefore, they now have a card where they can't get money from and send it by bank transfer similar. They just could buy actual things. So we would save a lot of money if we would give them the permit to work immediately. At the same time, many people who are skilled workers and try to get a visa, and this takes a year or two or even more, why would they do this if they just step in and say, oh, well, I need asylum? So this would like be a pull factor to say everybody who just says asylum gets a job in Germany. So is it a no? Is it I stay neutral. Germany should abandon the goal of becoming climate neutral. we have a climate change, and if we don't do something, then it will change. It's not a big issue where I live because it's far away from the coast, it's not in the mountain, so I don't care if there's no more snow in the mountain. I don't ski. If the level of the water rises a bit, well, yeah, it's a coast, but not where I am. At the same time, there are islands, I don't know, Nauru or Tuvalu, that will not be there anymore because it will be flooded in future, and there's nothing you could do against it. You could only help other islands not be flooded. Um, and so, yes, we have to become climate neutral and should abandon the goal of becoming no, we should not abandon it. In Germany, the 35-hour week is to be established as a legal standard working time for all employees. So at the moment, the working time is 8 hours per day to 6 days a week, 48 hours, but the standard is 40 hours a week. 35 is nice, but why should it have to be the legal standard? For example, the legal standard is 4 weeks of paid vacation, but standard is 5 to 6 weeks. And it's not the legal standard, but it's the standard of companies. Uh, well, I don't know. I stay neutral. Abortion in the first 3 months of pregnancy should continue to be legal only after counseling. In France, I think they put abortion into the constitutional rights, so women could decide on their own. I heard from the USA that it's much stricter now. And in Germany, I also have a video on pregnancy, and there's a part with abortion. It's the case that if you want to do this, you go to a counseling center. There are different ones from the churches, from free institutions, and they show you all options that you will have. And after this, you can decide what you want. You get a certificate if you're not in an institution from the Catholic Church. They are not allowed to offer certificates, the others are. And with the certificate, you decide on your own. And if you have this, you can go to a doctor and get an abortion. And I think it's a good way. So I'm a man, so hmm, I'm staying neutral here. The euro is to be replaced by a national currency in Germany. Why? It's beneficial. We trade a lot with the other EU countries, and most of them, or a lot of them, have the euro, so it's easier to don't have to calculate exchange rates. I don't have to change money when I go to France or Austria or the Netherlands. No, I don't agree. When expanding transport infrastructure, rail should have priority over roads. We have good roads. Some people say in their videos we have the best roads in the world. Um, and we have a lot of roads and good connections, but we have too much cars and we have to get rid of these cars. And this is only possible if you have a good option with good public transport. And rails are a very important part of this. And here I agree. Yes, this should have priority over roads. Voluntary work should be credited towards future pension. So I have a whole playlist about voluntary work in Germany, and I think so. It should be credited. I don't know how, but yes, I agree. It should be credited. The property tax should continue to be passed on to tenants. At the moment, if you are a landlord and there is a property tax on a certain thing, you may say, okay, this building has this amount of property tax. There are flats inside. I divide it by flats. And so everybody has to pay its share. What would be the other way around? The other way around probably would be the the rent increases or so. at the end, the tenant will pay it. So I think it should continue. Oh, well, I don't know. The right to strike for employees in critical infrastructure companies is to be restricted by law. At the moment, there are strikes in the public transports, and I also made a video on that a bit longer ago. And there's, for example, sometimes that the pilots for air traffic are on strike, or that the train drivers strike, and it's a small union but very powerful because there are many uh, train drivers, and this costs a lot of money, but you have the right to strike by basic law. And there would be also a possibility, as it was, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, that there would be no strikes, and it would be very simple. You have civil servants who are not allowed to strike. So some say, yeah, it's much too expensive, but there are ways around it. So I stay neutral. In Germany, referendums should be possible at the federal level. Um, in Switzerland, there are regularly such referendums, but they have a different kind of democracy. Every party that is voted for in the uh, what is it, Senate? I don't know what this is. Rat, kind of Rat is it in there? They are part of the government, and this is concordance democracy, and we have a opposing democracy. So you vote for the parties, and then they make coalitions, and the coalition is in charge, and the others are in the opposition. So on the one hand, you vote for your party and say, no, I want to have it more conservative or more left wing or more liberalism or whatever. And then the future government probably will do so if they get into power. And with referendums, it should be possible. Well, even in Switzerland, there are not always many people who vote in a referendum. I'm neutral. Children under the age of 14 should be able to be prosecuted. Um, so prosecuting with a judge and with prison and so on is only available after 14. Before, it's the Youth Welfare Office who cares about this and so on. There have been issues that even younger people committed violent crime. Um, and the idea in Germany is to socialize them, that they go on the right track back again. So it works on a kind, but there are experts who would argue on this, so I stay neutral. Germany should campaign for the abolition of increased EU tariffs on Chinese electric cars. So, because China supports their manufacturers so much, the EU says, well, that's not fair, so there's a big high tariff on these. And on, also, because China supports its manufacturers for electric cars so much, the EU says that's not fair competition, so we put on tariffs on that. Um, and the thought is, if the tariffs are down, German manufacturers could more easily sell their cars again back to China. I just don't know if it would work and if just Germany should make a campaign against something the EU says, so I stay neutral. In Germany, it should generally continue to be possible to have a second citizenship in addition to German one. This is now possible for a few years. Even some people who otherwise had to uh, get only the German citizen and no more the other ones say, well, no, I don't like to give up my old citizenship. I don't know what would be beneficial for this, so I stay neutral. A compulsory social year is to be introduced for young adults. Yes, it has been that way in a kind of, when was it, 15 years ago? I think so, 10 years ago. Um, there was a compulsory military service in Germany, and that was then, uh, yeah, it's it's possible still, but they say no, we don't make it compulsory, the military service. And of course, this military service was only for young men. And while in the first years, everybody had to go, so in the 50s and so on, everybody had to go to the military. Then they said there are people who don't want to go to the military. And they offered the civil part, like going in a rescue organization or healthcare organization or environmental protection organization. And this was the other part. I mentioned this also in the video, I think, about the THW. And yeah, I think a compulsory social year would be good. I just don't know if it's according to European law because slavery is forbidden or forced labor is forbidden. And the only exception, I think, is in case of defense. So, a military, compulsory military year or compulsory military duty would be possible, and therefore other duties. Um, but overall, I don't know if it's legal, so I stay neutral. New heating systems should continue to be allowed to run entirely on fossil fuels like gas or oil in future. Entirely. No, we have to abandon fossil fuels, so it should not be allowed to be entirely. So at least there should be something additional, like, okay, you basically try to do it with wood. If it's not enough, you could also use something else, or you basically try it with electric things from your rooftop, maybe heating water, just heating water on the rooftop with solar energy and support the other things. So, no, not entirely. Not entirely. I do not agree. The statutory minimum wage is to be increased to 15 euros by 2026 at the latest. Um, I think in my video about wages, I talked about it that the EU said the minimum wage has to be 60% of the average wage, and it could be that is by 2026. But I don't know if 15 euro at that point is 60%. So, well, yes, it should be the 60%, but I don't know if it's 15 euro. So now I could weigh these things. I see here, this was a neutral one, this was I've agreed, and let's have a look. And this is like I have disagreed. And for example, if it would be very important to have skilled workers and not to use power plants, then I could say this is more important. And I get onto the selection of parties. So here are the parties that were voted for in the last election. This is a special one from Schleswig-Holstein. It's the Danish minority. They have the law to be there. There is a law that they, as a minority, are be there. And I just could say, okay, I take all of them. So, rejuvenation research. Never heard of this before. Just saw one advertisement in the TV. So these are other things. So there are a lot of smaller parties, I would agree. And so this is one option. And I could say, okay, I continue to tuning. And with continue to tuning, I could even say I want to have other parts here. So, for example, it's cancellation. No, I want it a different way. So you see here something is recalculated. And now I just want to see if you say, okay, only the bigger parties, let's say, those who were elected. And then this was parties that were elected week of pregnancy. I'm a bit so green left, yeah. So these parties I know. What the hell is a week of pregnancy? This is a bit weird. Week of, week of pregnancy. Oh, this is great. Oh, great! Week of pregnancy. It's the South Schleswig Voters Association, the Danish minority. I had no clue what they meant. So this was really funny. Yeah, I vote for the week of pregnancy. That's great. So this is a Danish minority. I don't know how much many politicians are in the highest council in the Bundestag. There are some, and I think they usually vote with the government. So they are, of course, for the Danish minority, but they are not like left wing, right wing, or something special. They are nice neighbors, let's say so. So this is week of pregnancy. Great idea, great idea. Okay, wonderful. So continue tuning of this part. Week of pregnancy. So this Südschleswischer Wegeverband. That's hilarious. Um, So, and here also the teasers, what they did and so on, and you could even read through um, their reasons for the one or other thing, why they justify this, and you see all parties who agree, who are neutral, and so you could do this on, and also their viewpoints on certain things, and here are the other parties, what were their answers on a certain thing, the justification. And there you could go through and check this. Week of pregnancy, hilarious. Okay, let's move on. So this is now the Wahl-Kompass. The Wahl-Kompass is made by the University of Münster. Münster is in North Rhine-Westphalia, so this is not the center in Munich, München. It's not in Bavaria. And it's not the little town of Munster, where, for example, the German Tank Museum is located. No, Münster is a very old city, and there is the Institute for Political Studies, and one professor and probably his team made this Wahlkompass. There are a few less parties. I will do it the same as I did before. I try to use the same answers. So let's have a look at the Wahlkompass. This is a Wahlkompass from the University of Münster. First, you can enter some questions so they could check on the answers what kind of people probably would vote for which party, but you can also skip this and you can also give your email address to get further information. No. So we started, we see no option is like skip, and the others is from completely agree, agree, neutral, disagree, and I strongly disagree. So we have here 5 options instead of 3 in the Wahl-O-Mat. And there are some questions, only 31, so a bit less. First, the next Bundestag should strictly adhere to the debt brake. So, the same as the thing, there is a debt brake, we know why it is, and here I have a bit more things to say, so completely, yes, so yes, I think I agree, but a bit more flexible, please. The Deutschland ticket is to be retained in the long term.
You may know that we have a Deutschland ticket, what offers the possibility to go on short distance public transportation throughout all of Germany. The Deutschland ticket, it's currently 59 euro, I think. Last year it was 49 and it started sometimes with 9 euro, I think through Corona also. And it's nice. So 59 euro a month and you can travel anywhere in Germany. Cannot travel with long distance trains, but with short distance trains. And it's pretty good. So you sometimes really do not need a car at all. So the Deutschland ticket should be retained in the long term. As I said in the other one, um, yes, priority on railroads instead of individual cars. And so this is a very good option to do this. And here I completely agree. The nuclear phase out was a mistake. This is an interesting question. And the other one I said, I don't think that we go back into nuclear power plants. Here's the other question around the phase out was a mistake. As I told you, don't know, 20, 30 nuclear power plants were shut down in the last decade, and the last three, I don't know, 1, 2 years ago. And there's a question, was this phase out a mistake? Because even if it's expensive, even if there is a certain danger, a nuclear power plant is much better for the environment in CO2 than a gas power plant or a coal power plant. So was it a mistake? So in this particular case, I would say I agree, not necessarily completely agree, because it's not a completely mistake, but maybe we should have moved on with them a bit to shut down 2 or 3 coal power plants. The question, of course, at this point is, where did we get the uranium? There should be a uniform pension insurance scheme into which everyone pays. Again, another question than before. There was a single health insurance. Here it's a single pension insurance. And I like this idea, what is also done, I think, in Switzerland, where you have to pay from anything and any income into this pension insurance. And there's also, I think, a very good way which says, okay, everybody gets at least the minimum pension and it can grow up to the 4 time of the minimum pension. While in Germany, you also would get a minimum. Um, but if you're very rich and have very much income, they stop at a certain amount. Don't know what is it now, 70,000, 80,000 euro a year. Um, and then they stop. So what you get above this, you don't have to pay insurance contributions for that amount. And other way around, you only get to a highest level of pension when you pay the highest level in. But you could even earn more than the highest level. I think in Switzerland it's a nice idea the way around. You have to pay from any income, but the maximum pension is, I think, 4 times the minimum. And they say, no, that's absolutely fine because those who earn more, they would even have to have the ability to make other uh, types of investment. So it's not that's a problem for them that they only get 4 times the minimum wage. I think this is a really good idea. So I don't know how they would do this with a uniform pension insurance. I like it. Of course, we have a certain problem with our pension. For example, in Austria, it's a similar system, but they get more out than we get. That's a bit crazy. The Norwegian pension is, I think, in large parts on shares. So yeah, that's a good idea. They have to do it completely. I don't know how they want to do it, but I agree with this. Germany should spend more money on its military defense. Oh, I'm a former soldier, so I would say yes, of course. best equipment, best training for the best soldiers. Of course, probably the French Foreign Legion would say, "What, best soldiers? Come on!" And probably the U.S. Marines say, "What, best soldiers? Come on!" Whatever. So on the one hand side, I was yes. On the other hand side, well, we have many things we have to do. We have investments we have to do in the infrastructure, in the schools, and we have all other issues. So, is it up to military? Well, on the one hand side, there's a crazy bear in the east. Uh, there's also not a very stable one in the west. Uh, I kind of would. Do I agree with this? So many other expansions we have. So here I would stay neutral. Anyone who migrates must adapt to the culture and values in Germany. Huh, that's a good question. So, why is Germany what it is? Because it has the culture and values it has. And I think they are really good. For example, this question, is there no freedom of speech in Germany? No, there's a freedom of opinion. But the highest value is the inviolability of human dignity. That's the highest good. It's nothing above that. So you can say what you want unless you violate another's um, dignity. So that's just the case. And I think this is a really good idea. And here, well, with all values we have and whatever, do I completely agree? I think I completely agree. Yes, must do this. In the long term, the pension level should be stabilized at least at the current level. I think so. In the long term, at this level, with the current system, it might be hard to stabilize it at this. I think, yes, it would be nice. I agree that it should. It should. Yeah, it should. Yes, I agree it should. Cannabis legalization should be maintained. I really don't know because some people said, "Oh, that was a big mistake. Now everybody will use cannabis and whatever, and oh, the people get stoned." And the others say, "No, it was good because now it's not criminalization and the dealers don't get money and whatever." I really don't know on the specific things, so I stay neutral. Better political results are achieved when randomly selected citizens participate in discussions in citizens' council. Better political results. Better political results. Good question. I don't necessarily think it would be better. For example, after the Second World War, if you would have asked the German people, they would not have wanted the Bundeswehr. But it was important at the time, and now we have it, and it's very good and integrated army. So would it be better? I think it's basically a good idea, but I don't agree that it was always be better. But I do not strongly disagree. I just say I'm not sure if it would be better. It would be good to talk to them, but I don't know if it would necessarily be better. Renewable energy sources should have priority, even if this leads to higher energy prices for households. Renewable energy sources should have priority. Yes. What else? As I told you before, nuclear power plants are too expensive, way too expensive, and we have to get rid of fossil fuels. And yes, it has to have priority, even if it leads to higher energy prices. Yes, because the high energy prices we have in Germany also made it that way that the consume of electrical systems is lower than it was before. Uh, the cars consumed lower fuel because our energy prices were so high. If you would have been like in the US, where it's not very expensive, you wouldn't care so much about saving energy because it's not so expensive. But in Germany, where it's really expensive, you think about saving energy. So, yes, at this point, I completely agree. Government spending should be reduced to enable tax cuts. Hmm. On the one hand, yes. If it's necessary tax cuts, I don't know. On the other hand, we need enough spendings on different things because if you have only a very small amount of taxes, again, the example with the US, smaller taxes, but you have to pay for anything yourself. As I said, the universities sometimes charge 10 or 20 or $30,000 a year or even in a semester. I stay neutral. A wealth tax is to be reintroduced. There was some before, so who was really rich and had a certain wealth had to pay a small amount on taxes to that. And it's like the taxes for the highest income tax. To a certain degree, you could do it, not too much, because then they try to avoid this to go out of the country or whatever. Should it? Should it not? Well, I would prefer. If I only had three options, I would say I'm neutral. At this point, with five, I would say I agree. The sanctions against Russia should be maintained. Yeah, huh. Good question. The idea behind these sanctions is that the attack from Russia against Ukraine would be so expensive that they stop it at a certain time to don't get bankrupt. In parts, it works. But on the other hand, now they sell their goods to China, India, and in other parts, or they use their shadow fleet to avoid the sanctions. In my idea, it would be perfect if somebody starts a war, the whole world says, no, we don't trade with you anymore. So you don't have to push armies inside or weapons or whatever. It's just such a fiscal issue that nobody wants to go on war anymore because it was such a mess with all the sanctions. That would be a really good thing. And I think they should remain. Vehicles with combustion engines should also be able to be newly registered after 2035. There was the idea that from that point on, you cannot build new or register new vehicles with combustion engine, but only with electric cars or something like this. There are politicians in Germany who think about technology often so open to technology solutions, what is really stupid because they say, well, we could use the H2 hydrogen to use it, or we make fuel from hydrogen and CO2. The fact is, you need so much more energy to have this hydrogen or even this synthetic fuel. Doesn't make sense. Only the richest people could afford it because planes or ships, they wouldn't use oxygen or the other fuel. So even if you would be able to register them, nobody could afford to pay the things. But in fact, yes, if the whole fuel would be renewable, then it would be not the problem of the combustion engine because the fuel is renewable. Well, so it's just the fuel, but it does make sense, so I stay neutral. Wealth should be redistributed from the rich to the poor. It is done. Also, we have a higher tax rate for rich people and a lower tax rate for poorer people. So in that kind of sense, it is redistributed. So I don't know, take it from the rich, give it to the poor or whatever. Um, I, so if somebody works a lot and makes a lot of money, it's fine for this person. Okay, at a certain point, it gets absurd. So even football player or basketball player or American football player or whatever who gets some millions a year, while a person that works 40 hours a week in an office, in bookkeeping, accounting, at the checkout or whatever, also works, but gets 20, 30, 40, 50,000 a year. So this is really a big difference. But beyond getting, let's say, 5 million a year, if you get more than this, that's really crazy. And to become a milliardaire or a billionaire, you can't do it by work. You can only do it by investment. And this has nothing to do with your work. This has just something to do with the work of other people. Um, so this is insane that those people are there. And we see at least one of these persons who thinks the world is his own. But is it a reason to redistribute from the rich to the poor other than by taxes? I don't think so. So, yes, in a certain way it is. So, I think it's good. I stay neutral. There are better politician results when citizens can vote directly in referendums. As I said, it's not necessarily better. Sometimes you have to do things that have to be done and not because populists say something else. It's like the actual thing on migration debate, where they say, "Oh, look, there was a threat in Munich or whatever." This is horrible, and I see it, but you don't hear what Germans did at the same time. Of course, there was also stabbing between Germans, so I don't think it's necessarily better. There are set to be further arm deliveries to Ukraine. I had it before, so yes, no, I stay neutral. It is completely sufficient if only the male form is used in text from public institutions. For me, it is. I could understand it. But I have a whole video on this, even with these forms. And the fact is, the younger the people are, the more important is that you clearly talk if it's male or female. And we have so many changes in language, so I think we get used to it. And there's nothing special if you talk about Ärztinnen instead of Ärzte und Ärztinnen. This is no problem. Everybody understands you. For me, I I don't care about it. The amount of the citizens' allowance is to be reduced. I had it in the other way also. It's hard to do it, so I stay neutral. A general speed limit is to be introduced on German motorways. I completely agree, as I said before. Large inheritance should be taxed more heavily. Um, could be. It's the same with the wealth tax, with these things. There should be some. But if it's more, I'm not in this topic so much. It should be easier for women to have an abortion. Same as we had before with the 3 months period. I think it's fine, so I stay neutral. There should be no general military and civil service obligation. Ha, the other way around. They said, yeah, shouldn't we? And here they say there should be none. There should be no general. I disagree with this because I think I was a conscript when I started at the military and I stood there for some years. No, I disagree. Do I strongly disagree? No, I don't strongly disagree, but I disagree. I think there should be a general military and, of or civil service, I think that would be a possibility. Restrictions on personal data protection rights are justifiable in order to increase national security. Same thing as the things on the train stations is facial recognition. Restrictions on national security. I stay neutral. Asylum applications should, if possible, be proceeded outside the EU. Yes, if you could do it, you go into your embassy and say, sorry, they are after me. I want to have asylum. So yes, I agree. But what do they think about it? Like this thing with Italy, they want to do it in Albania, I think, and the UK want to do it in Rwanda also. No, so yes, in an embassy, I agree, but is it what you think? So um, I stay neutral. The state should interfere in the economy as little as possible. Some people think don't let the state into it. But would you have any security on food, on buildings, on whatever if they do not interfere in the economy? No. And I just had a video on building where they even had in Rome, in the ancient Rome, regulations how the buildings had to be built, how far away, just for fire reasons. And of course, that's an economy because those buildings were also for rent and they were built and so on. So I think no, should interfere as little as possible. So I strongly disagree that they should interfere as little as possible. I don't say they have to do it like in communism where they say anything on this, so not this, but to interfere as little as possible, no, absolutely not. Recognized refugees should receive more state support. Recognized refugees should receive more state support. The other thing around was they should immediately get work permission. No. Here they should get more state support. Why more? To be fair, if I flee for my life and I get into a secure area where I can live, whatever live is at this point. So I get enough food, I get shelter and whatever. This is very important. And when I have an asylum or whatever, and this is fit, then I can start to work. And if I think about all these refugee camps outside where people sometimes live in tents or whatever, I think it is a good support they have. So no, I don't think they should have more state support. Here at this point, I can disagree. They should receive more. No. Stock market profits should be taxed more heavily. Yes. Just yes. Nobody did something about it, and you can tax them. Why not? The benefit was done by the workers in those companies where you got shares. And especially your personal tax amount is higher than a company has to do on shares. So I agree. I do not completely agree, but I agree. There should be a uniform health insurance scheme into which everybody pays. As I told you before, nice idea, but at this point it's a co-financing, so I stay neutral. Heat pumps should receive less support in the long term. Heat pumps, what they do now for heating, are the most efficient way of doing heating. And if we have even renewable energy, it should cost less. So they should receive less support in the long term. So yes, in the long term, they should be the only ones and get less support. Funny thing is that these heat pumps are much cheaper out of Germany than inside Germany, and maybe because of this support. So I agree they should get less. Those who rent out apartments privately should be able to set the rent themselves. Oh, this is an interesting thing. The other was just the cut, and here it's a different way who does it privately. So you are the house owner and have one apartment more, and you could say what you want. And I agree that those people could do it. It's not like a big apartment building, but it's just a single person. And I agree those should do this. Yes. So here's another question now. Uh, do I know these parties? And how likely is it for me to vote for this party? I could do it, but it's not interesting now. Not for the results, only for their uh, calculation later, not for the thing. And so here we see now the result here. So we have a progressive or conservative aspect in general in the politics, and this is uh, economy to the left, economy to the right. So this is conservative with a very liberal economy, and this is very left-like um, economy, maybe up to communism or whatever, and this is very progressive. And oh no, I don't want it. And so this is where, according to my votes, the standpoint is. So it's nearly in the middle, and a bit more economical to the left, probably because I said no, the state should interfere. And these are things. So I could say, well, ÖDP or something like this would be probably one of the parties. And there's something else. So, and these are now the results: 44% SPD, 43% CDU. You're so very close. ÖDP 44, and so on. So everything is quite narrow. And here also I could check the justification on several things. So these are two options where people can check which party is most likely to be my party, and then they should go into deep and think about why do they do this, why do they do that, and maybe it's a second, third, or fourth party what fits for me. Any comments in the comments? Thank you for your attention. See you in the next video.